Hi, subscribe to the channel and drop your comment below. If you're into epic stories about war machine, jaw-dropping facts and deep dives into history, you are for the treat. Today I'm talking about on your wide ride through the world of Soviet engineering during World War II. We're talking about 5 incredible pieces of military tech, tank and self-propeller guns that could change the game but never saw combat. So, war, genius, and missed chances. World War II wasn't just about soldier fighting on the front lines, it was also a time and engineering breakthrough. While the Soviet Union was fighting for its survival, its engineers were dreaming up machines what could turn the tide of battle. But fate had other plans. Some of these creations never made into the battlefield, either because they were too late, too experimental, or just too hard to build during a war. Today we are diving into the stories of 5 Soviet war machines: the T-44 tanks, the Beasley Is-3, and the self-propeller gun Su-85B, the Su-37 and Su-101, Su-102. These aren't just machines, they're a symbol of hope, ingenuity, and the tools called made then when the world was fire. Picture this: factory running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, engineer working on no sleep, and the front line screaming for more weapon. In this house, some wild ideas were born, ideas that were a hit at their time. But war doesn't wait for perfection. Some of these machines missed their moment because of rushed production, others because of economic realities. In this story I break down how these machines were created, why they didn't fight, and how their ideas shaped our future. Plus we take a look at the economic backdrop of the Soviet Union during the war to see why some brilliant projects stayed on the drawing board. Let's dive in. T-44, the tank that looked of the future. Let's kick things off with the T-44, a tank that could have been a superstar but got stuck in the shadow of its famous cousin, the T-34. Imagine it's 1944. The war's raging. Soviet factory are stretched thin. And engineers know the T-34, while awesome, is struggling against never German tanks like the Panther and Tiger. They needed something fresh, something bold. Enter the T-44. The T-44 wasn't just an upgrade to the T-34. It's worth a whole new beast. Here what made it stand out. New suspension system. Instead of the T-34 clinking springs, the T-44 had a torsion bar suspension, making it smoother and more agile. Smarter engine layout. The engine was placed sideways, which let engineer move the turret to the center of tank, improving balance and protection. Tiger armor. The front armor was beefed up and they got right on the driver hatch, a weak spot on the T-34. This change made the T-44 faster, taller, and better of the crew. So why didn't hit the battlefield? Why didn't T-44 fight? The T-44 was officially approved in July 1944. By November, they built 25 tanks, and by May 1945 they had 190. Sounds like it's ready to roll, right? So fast. Their early T-44 had issues. Factory battered by bombing and relocated to remote areas. Called charge out perfect machine. Parts broke and quality was spotty. Plus, switching to mass production of the T-44 means retooling entered factor, which would stop the production of T-34, the tanks the front line desperate needed. Imagine your factory boss getting daily calls to deliver more tanks. Stop everything to build a new model. That's man's urine of downtime. The army couldn't afford it. After the war, they ironed out the T-44 Kings. By 1947, they built 1,823 tanks. This served in the Soviet army until the late 1960s, and some were converted into recovery vehicles that stayed in use ever longer. The T-44 saw action only once, during the Soviet intervention in Hungary in 1956, but its real legacy. It paved the way for the T-54 and T-55 tanks, which became global icons and are still used in conflict today. To get why the T-44 didn't make it to the war, let's look at the Soviet economic in 1914. Factory had been moved east to places like the Ural Mountain to escape German advances, and were running off fumes. Workers were scarce and material were tight. According to the historian Sokolov book, The Soviet Economy During a Great Patriotic War, about 20% of the Soviet military budget went to tank in 1943 to 1944. The focus was on pumping out the T-34, cheap, reliable, and battle-tested. Switching to the T-44 meant new equipment, retraining workers, and rethinking supply chains. In the war-torn economy, that was a tall order. The T-44 feels like a kid who trained for the big game but never got to play. Its ideas were brilliant, but timing and circumstances worked out. I can't help but wonder, what if the T-44 had hit the battlefield early? Could I have outshined the T-34? Or world-stopping T-34 production have been decided? History doesn't do what-ifs. But this question makes you think about the cost of progress. What do you think about T-44? Would you have risked switching protection during the war? Drop a few in the comments and hit the subscribe button from the stories like this. And next is 3, the tank that shocked the world. Next up in the E3 is heavy tank that wasn't just impressive, it was terrifying. This beast didn't just turn heads, it made jaw drop, even almost the eyeless. The E3, approved of March 27, 1945, was a game changer. Here why. Monster armor. Its front armor could shrug off heat from the German 88mm Pak 43 gun, one of the deadliest weapons of the war. Sleek turret design, the low, routed turret made of taut target, big gun. Its 122mm D25T cannon could punch through almost any armor. But like the T-44, the E-3 missed the war. Why? The E-3 was rushed into production. The first 25 tanks were being built in the April 1945, just as the war in Europe was winding down. Testing revealed problem. The engine overheated and the turret armor was breached. They fixed these issues during production, but fully battle-ready E-3 didn't reach the army until August 1945, too late for the fight against Germany. The E-3 got his moment to shine too. On September 7th, 1945, 52 E-3 tanks from the 2nd War Tank Army rolled through Berlin in a victory parade celebrating the end of World War II. Not a single tank broke down at a huge win. The Allies were stunned. Their tank, like the American M26 Pershing, looked outdated next to the C-3. The story that the S3 was impressive that in USA reclassified its M26 Pershing from a heavy tank to a medium one the day after the parade. Not true. The reclassification happened in June 1946, and this was more about politics and boosting morale than the history. The USA didn't have a true heavy tank in mass production, so they called it a Pershing Heavy to sound toss. Still, the E3 left the mark. Its design influenced tank for years, and its freeze look became a symbol of Soviet power. Building a heavy tank like E3 was crazy expensive. Historical Sweden estimate that one E2 tank cost about 300,000 rubles, and the E3 with a complex design was even prices. In 1945, the Soviet Union was pouring money into rebuilding its shattered economy. War damage cost an estimated 679 billion rubles. With so much at stake, mass production private tank like its S2 took priority over risky new design. The S3 is like a rock star who showed up after the concert ending. Its parade in Berlin was a mega draw moment, showing the world the Soviets were ready for anything. I imagine the aliens watching this tank roll by thinking we're behind. It's shame the S3 didn't get to fight. It could we been legend like the T-34. Could the S3 have changed the war if it arrived early? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more epic war stories. Next, Su-85B, the little gun that cuddled. Now let's talk about the Su-85B, a light self-propelled gun that could have been a perfect sidekick to the famous Su-76M, but ran out of the time. The Su-76M was a superstar. 14,219, two were built, second only to T-34. It was cheap, simple and effective, but its 76mm gun struggled against newer German tank. In May 1944, engineers started working on new guns based on the Su-76Ms. Classic, but with 85mm D5S cannon. The first version, the Su-85A, flopped because the gun recoil was too much for the light chassis. By March 1945, they tried again with the Su-85B, using a new 85mm LB2 gun and a stronger engine. It's passed tests in April and May 1945, but never went into production. The war ended, and the Gorky automobile plants, which was supposed to build the Su-85B, shifted to making civilian car and trucks. Another factory, plant number 40 in Mytishi, tested a version with a different gun, but that didn't pan out either. With the war over, the need for new guns faded. After the war, the Soviet economy was a rock shape. Industrial output in 1945 was down 30% from pre-wars levels, according to Soviet state recording. Factors like gas were critical from building vehicle to rebuild the country. Starting production of a new gun means delays of making trucks and cars, which the nation need more urgently. The Su-85B is a like kid who studied hard but missed the final exam because the school year ended. It was so close to being a game changer, especially for supportly infantry. But wars don't wait, and sometimes a good idea get left behind. Next, the Su-37, the anti-aircraft gun that was too late. Next up, it's the Su-37, a self-propelled anti-aircraft gun that could protect Soviet troops from Germany planes, but arrived too late. Work on the Su-37 started in late 1943. Built of the Su-76 chassis, it carried a 37mm anti-aircraft gun to shield tanks and troops from air attacks. The first prototype was ready in February 1944, but production was moved from plant number 3H in Kirov to plant number 40 in Mytishi because the former was busy with the Su-76M guns. By fall 1944, the Su-37 passed tested and was approved, but only 12 were built before the war ended, and none saw combat. Timing was ensued. The war ended, and the need for anti-aircraft guns dropped and German air power weakened. Production consumed briefly after the war, but exact numbers are unknown. Fun fact, the Su-37 in the Kubinka Tank Museum in Moscow is actually a different vehicles and Su-11 prototype, according to historian Yuri Pashlok. Anti-aircraft guns were important, but they took a backseat to tank and ground-based artillery. In 1944, less than 5% of the Soviet military budget went to anti-aircraft weapons, per Pashlok research. After the war, resources shifted to Bolton city and infrastructure. The Su-37 feels like a missing opportunity. In 1943 to 1944, German planes were still a threat, and this gun could save lives. By 1945, the Luftwaffe was climbing, and the Soviet has bigger priorities. It's reminded that time is everything. Su-101, Su-102, the backwards gun that never took off. Finally, let's talk about the Su-101 and Su-102, self-propelled gun, built by the Uralmash factory using parts from the T-44 and T-34-85. These were wild because their fighting competence versus is not real. It's a bold design choice. The Su-101 had a 100mm D10S gun, while the Su-102 packed a 122mm D25T. Putting a fighting compartment in the back reduced strain on the front wheels, let an engineer add deck ticket armor. Just started in April 1945, but issue like overheating and cramping crew space never got fixed. By 1946, the project was scrapped. The war ended, and Uralmash shifted to civilian production. Like mining equipment, the T-44 chassis wasn't strong enough for these guns, and switching to the 54 chassis would mean a complete redesign. Plus, the factory was short on the engineer for military project. Uralmash was the giant of Soviet industry. In 1945, it got order to help rebuild gold mines in Donbass. Civilian needs trumped military experiments, and the Su-101, Su-102 go shifted. This gun were like a cool science project that didn't make into the fair. The real component idea was clever, but the war was over, and the country needed tractor, not tanks. Its lesson is balancing innovation with practical needs. The stories of the T-44 is 3 Su-85B, the Su-37 and Su-101, Su-102 aren't just about metal and guns, they're about the people who build it and say pressure. Their projects show how tough it were to innovate during a war. Some, like the T-44 and E-3, laid the groundwork for future victories. Others, like the Su-85B and the Su-37, stayed prototypes, but they're all parts of an incredible legacy. What do you think of this machine? Which one's your favorite? Drop a comment below and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories about war, tech and history. Your support keeps this tale coming. Thank you so much. Bye.